This is bad. This is very bad. Tom screamed at himself internally, waiting for his eyes to start working again. The green light of the goggles eventually returned, even if he had a vicious spot in his vision. He took the time to listen for either Jackalope or Zarko screaming. To his relief, though, he didn't make out either. He peeked back over the small ridge he was hiding behind, struggling to make out anything. Gerg had seemingly not only survived the collision, but had gotten back on his feet and was currently backing up towards Tom, clearly trying to appear menacing. The bad thing looked rather dead, even if it was still twitching, which was a relief. Tom guessed that had been the crunching sound then. "You okay?" Tom shouted. Gerg gave a start at the sound coming from behind him, though he didn't turn to look back. Tom heard arrows coming in, one bouncing off Gerg's helmet, another finding a perch in his soft side. "No, that fucking hurt!" Tom definitely believed that statement. "Get your ass back in the air, there is still another..." Tom didn't get to finish warning Jax of the third bad thing, as it came down onto Jax's back, driving him into the ground, digging its clawed feet in deep. Jax roared out in pain, thrashing his head around to try and grab the massive thing on his back, as he tried to get back to his feet. Tom's vision was still rather fucked, so he ignored the scope, instead just aiming centre mass on feel at the huge target. He ran the action as quickly as it would go, sure to be damned. It would seem that the bat thing was rather lacking in the armor department as he shrieked loud enough. Tom felt even more sorry for Jax and his powerful ears. He needed to save the revolver, so he moved back behind the rock to reload, having emptied the rifle. Then he heard Jackalope open up, coming in on the wing. He didn't see where she was, but the shrieks of the mutated bat betrayed her target. "Go get him, girl," Tom thought to himself as he reloaded. She let all 6 shots in rapid succession. He looked up, trying to spot her, and caught either her or Zarko as she pulled up, going over Jax and heading straight for the keep. "No, you crazy bastard, they can see you!" Tom protested, despairingly, as he watched her race to the keep. He didn't spot any arrows coming up, nor did he see her take a hit as she banked to clear the keep, going into the darkness. That was fucking reckless, Tom thought to himself, looking back, down to reload his rifle. With the rifle reloaded, he looked back up. The bat thing was beating his wings, still holding on. Even through his night vision, he could see the blood pouring out of it, splashing over Jax's back, his movements a lot slower and less frantic. He also saw several darklings moving around Jax, some with long pikes, others wielding bows, all aimed at Jax. Then the grenade went off at the base of the keep, illuminating Jax and the monster on his back as clearly as a damn Hollywood movie. Tom didn't take the time to appreciate the moment, though, as Jax roared out again, his open maw filling with crackling lightning. He swept his head in an arch in front of him, pouring forth a stream of snaking lightning bolts, arching into the night looking for victims. Tom gave up on the goggles, flicking them up again. There was too much bright light around, and the torches around the keep gave him a decent silhouette to use anyway, as he brought up the rifle, trying to find the head of the beast, which was still clawing at Jax's back with his legs, using his wings to steady itself. "How the fuck aren't you dead yet?" Tom cursed, as he tried to keep track of its head, failing to keep a bead on it, as the creature thrashed around. He mentally crossed his fingers, pulling the trigger, his first shot missing completely. He forced himself to draw a slow breath, drowning out the cacophony of shrieks, roars and screams as he ran the action again. That fucker needed to die right now. The second shot hit, but was low, seemingly hitting somewhere in the creature's chest, the thing shrieking out in pain once more. "Come on, you useless idiot, hit!" Tom cursed as he ran the action again. He aimed higher, the shot hitting something, though not having much effect. God damn it! The fourth found the mark, taking the vile thing high in the neck. The creature screeched again, stumbling as Gerg finally managed to shake it off, grabbing it with his jaws and ripping it from his back with a strong pull, sending it sprawling to the ground. Then Gerg sent a shock running through it. The abomination gave a final shriek, the electricity springing between his claws as it spasmed. "Run, Gerg!" Tom shouted out, hoping that the dragon was somehow still flight-worthy. Gerg didn't move, his head swinging around, as if he was getting his bearings. Tom frantically set about reloading the rifle. "For fuck's sake, run!" Then Tom heard a shriek from above him. He looked up, being greeted by a smaller black shape descending on him, Stinger poised to strike. He was too slow going for his revolver as it smashed into him, knocking him over, Stinger hitting his thigh, bouncing off the metal plate. He didn't have time to thank Shiva this time, as the creature dove him to the ground, retracting the Stinger for another strike. Tom yanked the revolver from his holster, bringing it up, firing wildly from the hip, and sending 3 shots into the Volgrove. "I blew you up, shitface!" he screamed at the thing. It replied in a gurgle, as his insides were turned to mush. The creature let go from where it had latched on with its claws, staring back off him. The Volgrove swung his tail at him one final time, the Stinger catching in Tom's side. It wasn't a deep wound, but he could feel the hit of the poison. He brought the revolver up to eye level, blowing a hole in the creature's face. He slumped down behind the rock he was using for cover, hand pressed to his side. It was little more than a deep cut, but damn it hurt. He looked to the sky for more of the bastards, flicking his goggles back down. Those things were damn near pitch black, so he had no chance of spotting one without them. He couldn't see shit though, and more importantly, Gerg hadn't gotten his ass out of there. Glancing at the wounded dragon, Tom saw that he was limping backward towards him. He was being harried relentlessly from above, letting out a weak splutter of lightning into the sky, which seemed to catch one or two. This was a losing battle, and Gerg seemed to know it as he continued to back up. Tom ejected the spent rounds, reloading the revolver then holstering it. Looking back to Gerg, he spotted a darkling diving towards the dragon with what looked like a lance of sorts. Tom lifted the goggles to bring the rifle back up, slamming around home as quickly as possible, trying desperately to track it through the darkness. A white dragonette then came rushing out of the gloom, an audible crack being heard as Jackalop's warhammer crushed the foul creature's skull. "Way to go, Jackalope," he murmured to himself approvingly, finishing the reload of his rifle. Then he took off running around the left-hand side of Gerg back the way he came. He couldn't see any movement on the ground, and they had likely seen his fight with the Vulgar from above, so he needed to move. As he ran, he made out a new sound amongst the screaming and roaring. The sound of a massive ratchet working away. "In total, a few hundred, I should imagine," Theunis replied. Sapphire was starting to see Dakota's plan coming together. Money for the drawings, money from the Flaxons, supplies from the Royal Guard. They were going to be set for life at this rate. Of course, that wasn't going to happen. Factoring in Tom's thirst for material, Sapphire was reckoning on this all being gone by the end of the year. I wonder what the whole sugar idea could be worth. "So, less than the bribe they offered?" Baltham questioned.
"Wouldn't you want to pay a bit to avoid going to jail if you could?" Ulrich replied, sipping his tea. "They will likely try to drag things out as well."
"Bastards think they can buy their way out of anything." "Do we have any idea how long this might take?" Dakota tried, looking to Theunis. "Depends on how amicable the court is to their requests. If they want to drag things out, the court has to let them." Victoria cracked a very sly smile at that one. "And the lady isn't exactly in their favour, following her actions. We need to emphasise that she lied to the court to bring accusations of treason against a keeper who has just been praised by the king, and is currently in His Majesty's service, if I remember correctly." She heard the stern yet cordial face she so commonly wore, though it was clear she was intent on ruining Lady Flaxon. Sapphire guessed she took the slight against her extremely seriously. Then again, looking around her where they were, this was not the home of a modest family. Her name was likely extremely important to her, and it had been sullied. "That we are indeed. Jerry's headed out with Tom, Jackalope and Unkai. They left Daxi behind, though," Dakota replied with a slight nod. "They should have brought the kid. He needs the experience if they are to make a proper team," Victoria replied.
"Have you heard back from them, then?"
Rogue then questioned, leaning forward with his cup of tea. "Not yet. They should return sometime late tomorrow, if nothing was amiss," Dakota replied.
"Here's to hoping,"
Ulrich then continued, raising his cup.
"Sure is nothing yon Jarvis can't handle, not to mention your little demon."
"I can assure you he is no demon. Not until you heard the kids, at least. Then he turns scary," Sapphire added, lifting her cup. They all lifted their cups, giving a toast to the good luck of those back home.
"You know, he sounds almost like a big softy to me,"
Ulrich mused, leaning back. "I guess," Sapphire had to agree. "The most dangerous softy you are ever going to meet, though."
"Ha! Hardly. I still remember when I caught Baron attempting to stack some bricks he found like some kid playing. He soon insisted he knocked them over and seemingly wanted to clean up his mess."
Victoria gave a chuckle at that, stirring her tea. "You know he's going to kill you when he finds out you are still telling people about that."
"Ha! I doubt it. What about Jarrix? I'm sure he's struggling to adapt to life outside the training field. He's just lazing about all day, ain't he?"
They all had a bit of a look at each other. They didn't know more than a few snippets of news that had gone from the Nook through Dakota. "Not exactly. Tom had him out hunting and ploughing fields before the scouting expedition," Sapphire replied cautiously. She had no clue if that was good or bad, only that she had never heard of a dragon of the Royal Guard undertaking such efforts.
"You are sure this Tom isn't some demon? How does one even begin to convince a young, flamboyant, and, by my beautiful wife's reckoning, rather reckless dragon to plough fields?"
"Tom promised to fight alongside Jarrix in future." Dakota dismissed the question, glancing at Victoria.
"My God, if that did it, then I want to see this Tom in combat at some point."
"Oh, he's spectacular," Balathon let out excitedly. "You won't even see him coming. He hides like some scared fawn, then boom, you're dead."
"To the scared fawn that killed a Dark Knight, then?"
Ulrich went, refilling his cup and raising it again. "To the crazy human," Sapphire went, as they toasted the crazy bastard. She could get used to this as well. Then the conversation fell onto matters of what should be disclosed, and by whom during the inevitable trial. They would be running a tight schedule, with the first session luckily taking place the day after their meeting at the academy. Tom looked up to the key to see the massive door to their landing pad inching open. Figures emerging out onto the platform, some raining down arrows from above. "About fucking time," Tom let out, as he took up position on Jarrix's flank. Looking towards the front entrance, he saw armour, shields and body parts strewn around. The side of the wall was sharp black, and there were bloodstains spattering up his side. "Good riddance," Tom cursed, as he to Jarex. "Can you get up there?" Jarex didn't respond, though he looked in Tom's general direction and then glanced up towards the opening gate. He looked rough as all hell. Tom got a better look at the beating Jarex had taken from this angle. He could see the dragon's helmet was dented, and the left side of his face was mauled severely. Some of the plates running along his neck were missing, others were dangling from their mountings, bent and ruined. He stood there for a second before a fresh arrow landed in his back. He roared in pain, but the vicious anger of earlier was replaced with a more desperate tone. His head came back to look in Tom's direction.
"I won't leave you,"
he replied in a tragic voice. "God damn it, Jarex!" Tom cursed the dragon. If he went with Jarex, he would be turned into a pincushion. "No, I hide, you go, now move." Jarex reluctantly turned back to the keep, setting off at a limping run, his right foreleg apparently broken. He looked like an injured dog as he tried to run, bringing out his wings. Injured as he was, he didn't have far to the keep. Driving his wings down and using his hind legs to kick himself into the air, he crashed into the keep, lashing on with his claws and biting down on some kind of wooden beam, likely for a hoist, which creaked and groaned under the strain. The jump had him 2/3 of the way up as he started to climb, slowly and painfully, up to the side of the keep. Several archers on the platform were clearly doing their best to cover him. Despite their best efforts though, Jarex was still taking arrow fire. One darkling was even dumb enough to land on his back with a sword and shield. Tom blew that butt of the kingdom come. The sky was becoming a flurry of combat, as the clearly visibly white dragoness were chasing the darklings around the sky. They seemed to be trying to keep the darklings off Jarex, but Tom couldn't work out whether they were winning or losing, as making out the darklings was no easy feat at night, and he had no idea how many were left. Maybe a night battle wasn't the best idea, Tom thought to himself, as he spotted movement near the main door. Some pissed-looking motherfucker coming out in very familiar-looking black armor. The knight looked up towards Jarex and got out what Tom recognized as a potion bottle. "Oh no you don't." Tom swung the rifle around, lining up on the Dark Knight as another came out as well. The two of them seemingly started to argue. The bosses were a little over 100 meters away, since Tom had moved closer to get onto Jarex's flank. He tried his best to steady his ragged breathing, fighting their paralytic poison and aimed for the bottle. Tom had no clue what was in that bottle, but as he pulled the trigger, glass splinters went flying everywhere, the precious liquid spilling to the ground. That most definitely got the attention of the two bastards, as they turned to look in his direction. Tom debated firing again. Those were his targets after all, the ones he was supposed to kill in this now rather ruined plan. He topped off the rifle and got into a good stable position to aim. The first one then lifted his hand and pointed right at him, bringing up his shield. Tom's first shot rang out as he caught it in the neck, much to Tom's delight. As he stumbled back, clutching at his throat, the second one charged forward with more speed than Tom believed possible. It was larger, so likely a female, and she was moving fast into the darkness. He certainly didn't have time for a grenade, so he ran the action again, taking aim at the now ducking and diving target sprinting towards him. Pitch black as she was, Tom could hardly make out the night once she was out of the torchlight. Firing near blind 3 times, Tom held the last shot for the last possible moment, praying the rifle could punch a hole in the armor at point-blank range. He knew that was rather unlikely though, so as he held his breath, he gave a silent prayer for some kind of damn miracle, hearing the pounding footsteps coming for him. He was answered by Jackalope coming swooping down behind the knight, legs extended and claws bared, her warhammer held high above her head. She slammed into the vicious creature, driving it into the ground. Jackalope kept it pinned down as they skidded along the ground, using her wings to keep balance. Then, screaming with a vengeance, she brought down the warhammer spike first. The handle of the warhammer broke on impact, the spike being driven into his target and sticking in place. Tom stood stunned for a split second before the Dark Knight began to squirm beneath Jackalope, trying to get his arms under itself. Jackalope drew her knife, clearly intent on finding a hole somewhere in his armor. Tom took aim at the bastard's head, ready for the thing to look up, and then shouted at it, "Up here, you black pussy!" It wasn't elegant, but it got the desired response, as the knight looked up at Tom, receiving a bullet to the face for his troubles. It screamed and squirmed, somehow still not dead, as Tom drew the revolver, advancing on it. He didn't need it though, as the distraction brought Jackalope the time she needed to slide her knife into the knight's neck, stamping on it to drive it home. As Tom holstered the revolver and brought the rifle back up to reload, he felt a set of claws drive into his own shoulders, driving him to the ground. "Get off him, you idiot! He's on our side!" Jackalope borderline roared, as Tom struggled to get back up. Whoever was on his back right now not letting go, the talons digging into his vest shoulder straps and piercing through slightly. "Here's a dark thing! Look at him! He tried to kill you!" The protest came from another female voice he didn't recognize. Then he felt the impact as something hit whoever was on his back, throwing her off. "I said get off him!" he heard Jackalope shout. Then he felt strong hands grabbing him by the shoulders, helping to his feet. "You okay?" Jackalope questioned, looking at him with an expression of genuine concern. "Never better, but we need to get out of here," Tom replied, lying slightly. He looked to the sky worriedly. It might be hard to see, but Jackalope and the other dragonets sure as shit weren't. "What the fuck are you?" the female voice questioned from behind him. Tom didn't respond yet as he moved Jackalope to his side with an arm. then took a knee, levelling the rifle at the Dark Knight he had hit in the throat. It was currently so kind as to be leaning up against the wall, looking up towards Jax, exposing the nearly unarmored underside of his jaw. Tom put a round in the chamber and sent it straight into the fucker's brain. It was likely already dead, but now it certainly was. Tom then got up and turned to see a dragonette, seemingly a silvered Huntress who looked like she had been through hell. "Tom, human. Here to save your ass. How many inside?" She paused for a second, clearly not sure she should answer that. "Answer the damn question," Jackalope then demanded, clearly not pleased with the woman right now. "No clue. A lot of them came out here. There's one more of the knights though. They made it to the 3rd floor. Jackie, we are going inside. We need to kill the last one." Tom went, as he began reloading his rifle, then looked back to the new Huntress. "You defend Jax at all costs, understood? I'll fix your little indoor problem if you don't try to kill me again." Tom didn't wait for a reply, instead turning back to Jackalope, who looked ready to enact some carnage. Let's blow these bastards to pieces. That got him a downright evil grin, as she unholstered the revolver. They made it to the wall of the keep next to the door. Tom stacking up on the door, Jackalope looking at him for a second, but was stacking up behind him. "You ready?" Tom questioned, looking back to her. She was fumbling with the revolver, hand shaking slightly, as she tried to put the rounds in. "Fuck, this is hard," she let out in frustration, as Tom looked around for signs of imminent death approaching. He did not want to be surprised from the air a 3rd time tonight. "Hey, you're doing great. This is called stacking up, and we are about to breach and clear." Jackalope looked up at him for a second with a strange smile before returning to the task at hand. "God, that sounds so much better than fighting indoors." "Do you know where Zarko is?" Tom questioned, setting down his rifle and bringing out his second grenade. He removed the cap and got his lighter ready, as Jackalope finished her reload. They really needed to work on that. "Don't know. Somewhere up there. She's trying to keep them off him. She's got help now, though," Jackalope replied, as she shut the cylinder on the revolver, looking back up. "Ready."